Hello everyone.
Okay.
Today we will discuss BGP security and we will deep dive what is the current BGP security problem. So we will discuss origin validation, path validation, and some BGPSEC, other path validation approaches like SoBGP, but also we will discuss ASPA, Autonomous System Provider Authorization, and basically author of that, so inventor of that protocol. And for me, it is really promising. Hopefully, we will see wide deployment as well. Hopefully, it is also near future. And with me, Alexander here. Alexander, welcome.
Thank you very much. So, should I start?
Yeah, actually, let's start. Let's understand what's happening. And then while you go through, sometimes I will interrupt you and then ask probably more questions to better understand all whatever we will talk. So hopefully this will be another, not just another BGPSEC video, but the best video on the topic. So a little bit lengthy maybe, but we will try to cover as much as we can. So and we will try to make it really understandable with some topologies, etc. Okay.
Yeah, I will try my best. So let me start with, let me introduce myself. My name is Alexander Azimov, and I work for Yandex. And already for a couple of years, I was working at IETF at this BGP security stuff. So in these reports, the original report was made for Nanook a year ago. But for those who've seen these reports, please stop, do not turn off, and so on, because this one will be an update. It will also cover some new features that were recently added to ASPA, and you might also find it interesting.
Okay.
So we have two types of malicious activity or abnormal activity in BGP. It's called hijacks and route leaks. If it's most of these events happen due to mistakes that are made by network engineers, but there are also malicious activity. And malicious activity can cause significant problems. It may redirect end users to the phishing sites. It can be used to hijack HTTPS certificates, and after that redirection can go even worse. It is used for spam and botnet activity. There is proven attacks in BGP for these with these kinds of malicious guys. And of course, hijacks and leaks can be used as a denial of service. So let's
actually let me, for the previous one, usually what I think, Alexander, what I think usually when I hear route leak, for example, like 6 type of route leak was defined in RFC 7908. When I think about route leak, usually, not all the cases, maybe I just categorize route leak as not maybe malicious, but sometimes maybe fat fingering and sometimes unintended migration stuff, etc. causing. But when I hear hijack, I categorize as generally malicious activity. What do you say about
it? I disagree with this definition. Mm-hmm. I prefer to think that route leak is a situation when prefix was learned from one provider or peer and announced to another provider or peer. It can be done by mistake, for example, if communities are not well configured or not configured at all. Mm-hmm. Or it may be done by purpose to redirect traffic for the victim, and so thus analyze it, terminate TCP connections, and so on. For the hijacks, I prefer to think that hijacks happen when autonomous system is advertising prefix that doesn't belong to it.
But this is also hijack also not always is malicious. Like, for example, this famous Pakistan Telecom YouTube incident, we call it specifically sub-prefix hijack. So they were advertising those YouTube /22s as /24 because court order came to them. We call it hijack, though most probably they didn't do this intentionally, as malicious activity, but still we call it hijack. That's why I'm saying most of the time I categorize route leak as not malicious, but hijacks are usually malicious. Would you agree with that?
I would prefer to distinguish hijacks and route leaks from the technical side.
Okay.
About how they are happening.
Okay.
For the route leak, it is an intermediate autonomous system number that ignores, by purpose or accidentally, routing policies and thus redirects traffic. For the hijack, again, it may be malicious or mistake, but the hijacker is advertising prefix that doesn't belong to it.
Yeah.
It may use, for example, its own autonomous system number as the origin. It may craft some other ASPA to hide its own autonomous system number. But still, it advertises it from its own route.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's how I see it. It's slightly I slightly disagree with what is written in this RFC. And so that's why this specification you may find different. But for example, in the drafts that are coming through IETF, mostly a common definition of a route leak is still a prefix that is launched from one peer or provider and advertised to another peer or provider.
Yeah. Okay.
So let's jump to an example.
Mm-hmm.
Example of malicious activity. There was a network that was constantly hijacking foreign address space. It was done, it seems that for years, and it was ongoing until a report of the individual contributor at the NANOC mailing list. It raised a lot of buzz. There was a lot of discussion, and in a month, this network was disconnected from all upstream providers. It's a good example. So, an example of community without any regulations, without any authorities, was able to stop malicious activity. At the same time, there is a problem. Does it scale? Because it took a month and significant community effort to stop one malicious activity, one attacker. And with all my respect to the community, this attacker was not very smart. It was just hijacking foreign address space and sending spam from it.
Okay. Alexander.
Without any attempt to hide its autonomous system number from the world.
Okay. For example, were they... I know this example from couple actually presentation I've seen before, and it took a lot of time to depeer these guys or disconnect with these guys, right? Why it took a lot of time? By the way, Jeff, welcome, but your camera is not on yet. We cannot see you. Jeff Tanstra will be with us as well, as I told you. So,
hey, Jeff.
Hey there.
Yeah.
And actually my camera is on, just I think you disabled it.
Just a second. I didn't do intentionally, definitely, but it seems it's fine from my side. Okay, now we can see you. There. Excellent. So we just started, Jeff. We were discussing just probably categorized route leak and hijacks. Just we did that, and now we are discussing this famous guy BGP hijack factory. Why it took 1 month, to disappear, and they were advertising someone else's prefixes, right? So it was affecting real network.
About affecting real network, it is arguable because normally this kind of hijacks happen to unused address space.
So they were advertising bogons.
Not bogons, but they are using some kind of nmap. to check if there is any services active on this part of the address space. And if there is nothing there, they perform a sub-prefix hijack.
Okay, and so, they are using, for example, for spam purpose, those kind of things.
Yeah, and when these address space got in the spam house, they just drop it and switch to another address space.
Okay.
So that's why it was not raising alarm from the victims. Victims were not affected until they were trying to use this address space and found it in the spam house block list.
So it is not bogon. It is not bogon. It is allocated for someone. But let's say those guys got /16 and these guys are advertising /22 and then use it until those real owners discover it.
Normally, the real owners were not discovering it. It was, at some point in time, the entire address space was blocked by the spam house. So the usage of this address space becomes ineffective. And that's why they're, okay, this address space is blacklist. We're switching to another address space. That's why there was a lot of victims of these malicious activities.
Okay, so
because they were looking for new address space for a certain period of time.
So these guys didn't only affect one owner, but multiple people. Okay.
Yeah, and
they might hijack a reasonably long prefix, but the blocking might actually affect many more users because the prefix that's blocked is much shorter.
Yeah. Okay.
So getting back to the slide and the problem is that the community that showed its power in this specific incident doesn't have an automatic way to solve these issues if there will be many, 10 of issues, 100 of issues that will happen simultaneously. It will be really hard to fight attackers without automatic tools. So, by the way, we have tools. We have a lot of them. And from time to time, we are inventing new tools. So for each tool, I will show a bicycle that in my imagination represents this tool the best way.
So this picture was taken in Holland, for sure.
Repeat, please.
He didn't understand.
Yeah.
Those are Dutch bikes. They called Oma bikes, like for grandma.
Okay. So the first and the most known way to filter prefixes and routes in BGP, of course, are IRR filters. And I want to believe that our audience is familiar with them. The purpose of IRR filters is to transform ISETs to a prefix list that afterward is applied to on the links with customers. So it's very, very simple. And so let's look at this example.
So basically, IRR filters is doing the filtering in a dynamic way. Of course, what we will define now, how it is doing with the example, and also lots of problems with it. We will discuss those as well.
Yeah. So, but to say that IRR filters are dynamic, it's very arguable because
so you need an environment, of course.
Updates.
Yeah, you need an environment to get those, but still, I mean, not for each and every of your customers and then customers of your peers, etc. You are not defining statically. That's why I said dynamic. Yeah.
I see. For me, dynamic means that it can be easily updated anytime. But of course, for ISET, if you're even going to update it, the data will change at your upstream providers in 24 hours. If you have good provider, if your provider haven't implemented some automatic updates, it can last for a couple of days. So nevertheless, let's jump to the slide. And here the slide presents a very simple topology, and we will stuck to this topology during nearly all the slides. In this example, IS1 is a customer of IS2. Both IS2 and IS4 takes transit, so they're also customers of IS3. And during the slides, IS4 will do its... Something happened. Do you see the slides?
Yeah. They're not in presentation whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I can see.
I don't know what's happening. I was not touching even my keyboard. But
yeah,
let's move forward. And during the slides, IS4 will do it best to hijack address space that belongs to IS1. And we will evaluate on these tests what's happening and how IS4 can bypass different ways of filtering. So let's imagine that IS1 creates the route object and IS3 is using proper IRR filters. In this case, if IS4 will try directly to hijack address space, IS3 will be able to detect it and thus to reject these malicious prefixes. So everything is fine. But unfortunately, if IS4 has malicious intent, it's very easy to bypass such filtering. There is a number of databases where you can add a route object without any kind of authorization. The ISET, it's again, what's happening? I don't know.
Someone doesn't want BGP to be secure.
Yeah, it's hijacking my slides. Again, wait a moment.
Attacker here.
I have no idea.
By the way, this one, I want to do some comments on this. So what you are saying, at the moment, attacker wins, right? But if IRR, Internet Route Registry, would work correctly, I mean, if we will trust and if all the objects would be true there, basically this filter would work. Attacker couldn't win, right? So let's discuss that, because for many audience, they are not really from IETF or they are not advanced in BGP security, but I want them to understand the problem in a very understandable way. So here, what's happening normally, AS3 needs to check through the IRR, and if IRR would be totally trustable, what would happen? Okay, this prefix would be seen behind AS1. This is the truth. If AS3 would trust IRR, if IRR would contain all the correct information, now AS4 attacker is advertising the same address space which AS1 owns. AS3 would say no. Although you are shorter AS path, you are lying, because I know IRR is true, saying always the truth. And then from the IRR database, I got that AS1 is the owner. It is longer AS path, still AS1 is the owner, but IRR has basically what Alexander is saying. We can send many false information to IRR, and I think so far we were discussing that.
The problem is that we can't secure IRR data. And the reason is not only that there are some databases that have a lack of authorization. The key problem is the ISET itself, because you can add in your ISET everybody. You can add Google, T1, Yandex, whatever you want in the ISET, because adding a member in the ISET have no authorization in any database. No acknowledgement is needed.
No RADB, no one is doing that, right?
Yeah,
you cannot do it. You need complete consensus of every IS and IS path to provide what you're proposing. So, otherwise, you can just put any ISN in it and it will be just.
So what you are saying, Jeff, then, and what Alexander is saying, okay, if I am saying Google is my AS set, under my AS set, Google should say the same thing. Yes, I am there. Then it can be.
But
you would
I said it provides levels of recursion. So you are adding I set of the I set and so on, so on. And more than IRR are bound for the region. And the ISET, you can add add-on system from another region. And the IRRs are separated. The operations are separated. And they don't want to cooperate this way when one IRR will be able to change or affect records from another IRR, because there is also the question not only in adding records, but also in revoking records. And the way people are using ISET, I've made this question to the audience, and every time I saw the same answer. Please raise your hands when who have ever added add-on system number in its ISET. A lot of hands. And who have ever deleted add-on system number from its ISET? Nobody. Because for your operations, you need to add your new customer to your ISET to make it working, to propagate its prefixes and so on. But deletion is optional. You don't need to delete anything to keep things working.
So even maybe customer left you, still they will be there in the IRR.
On enterprise firewall, you only add new roles, you never delete them.
No garbage collection.
That's the reason why I said from degrading from the edge to the top. So if you take a look at the filters at the level of T1s, they will be much less effective than they can be. Mm-hmm. Because of the garbage that is happening at the edge.
By the way, when we say ASET, to be on the same page, we are talking about the customers, not peer or transit, right?
Sure. This is another limitation of this approach, because normally such filters are applied on the links with customers. Of course, there is no reason to apply these filters on your providers, because you're expecting full list of prefixes from your provider.
Yeah.
And moreover, big transit providers are not cannot apply such filters on the peering links, because there are, for example, let's discuss the top of the hierarchy, the tier ones. Why tier ones cannot filter each other? Because there are customers that are very old school, and so they are not registering their route objects, ISETs in the IRRs. For example, there are some places where IRR is not available. We can take LACNIC as an example. And there are letters, emails, where they are listing the prefixes they are going to announce. They are sending it directly to the upstream provider, who happen to be a tier one. And that's why the moment tier ones will start using ISETs to filter prefixes from each other, these companies will lose global connectivity.
But then, the exact same question we should ask later on for RPKI as well.
RPKI is different. RPKI have no problem when the record doesn't exist for specific add-on system number. But we will go. When we will
because if it is unknown, I can still accept it, etc. So I can reduce the local pref, whatever I can do with that when it comes to RPKI. By the way, one more clarification for the definition. ASSET and ASCON, when we say ASCON, mutually same thing or?
ASCON represents what is real customer cone of your network. ISET represents what is right in the IRR. The ideal ISET will be equal to the ISCON. The real ISET will be garbage on top of ISCON.
So whatever ASCON at the moment, whatever your customers, and then ASET, whatever is advertised in IRR, but maybe garbage there, no garbage collection, etc. there. But all information is a customer information in the IRR, we call it ASSET, and current correct customer information is ASCOM.
Yeah, so in other words, ISCOM is a set of your direct and indirect customers.
Yeah.
ISET is a set of your direct and indirect customers have written in the IRR.
Have written, yeah, there. Maybe false or right, but whatever in the IRR.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So configurational state versus operational state.
Yes, exactly. Very nice.
So, to summarize our discussion about ISET and IRR filtering, IRR filtering is very important because it helps internet to survive these days, because otherwise we will have constant incidents, hijacks, leaks, whatever. It can filter some mistake hijacks and some mistake leaks. It cannot be used for filter malicious activity. Unfortunately, because of a lot of ISET objects are poorly maintained, it makes all systems less effective. And there are also incidents when some huge tier 2 networks and even tier 1 networks have no filters at all. Such problems result from time to time into global incidents that affect thousands of networks.
Okay, here is important for me. When you say IRR filters cannot be used to filter malicious activity, I mean, whole purpose there, right? Especially with the IRR, if I think that I am doing the origin validation, which means, let's say it's true. I mean, we all know that many information, lots of information is fake in IRR. Somehow intentionally or unintentionally, wrong information there. But let's forget about it for a second and let's think. IRR, at least some level of malicious activity it can prevent. Why you say it cannot be used? It means like certain 100% it cannot be used for filtering malicious activity. Why?
Because as I've discussed, if I have a malicious intent and I want to hijack your address space, I will add your alternate system number in my ISET.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, I will be able to hijack it.
But then, actually, if you do that, even RPKI cannot do anything for it. If you can somehow manipulate
sure. No. Yes. So, and that's the difference between mistakes and malicious activity.
Okay, I agree.
By malicious activity, I have an intent to hijack, not a mistake when static routes are leaked, and so that's happening from time to time. Not a mistake configuring community, which results in a route leak, but a configuration which had a goal to redirect traffic from the victim network.
So, which you are trying to say, if they want to somehow divert the traffic, man in the middle, or let's say pet manipulation, like showing that I am really connected to origin, etc., they can do this. People can do this, of course, and IRR cannot do anything for it. And okay, now we are on the same page.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and we will discuss which mechanisms are applicable for the filtering mistakes, and which mechanisms are applicable for filtering malicious activity.
Sure.
During all the slides, we will discussing different techniques. We will get back to these kind of slides. Okay, let's move forward. By the way, bicycle. We forgot the bicycle. So, it's a IRR bicycle. It's old. It's hard. It's not very comfortable, but we still need to ride it. And at the moment, there is no chance to change it to something more comfortable and more usable. We are bound to it for at least for next dozen years.
Yeah,
maybe less. It's very difficult to make any other forecast in this place. So let's discuss the second option that is already available for the network engineers. It's of course ROA validation. I will not go to discussing this RPKI infrastructure, and by the way, this picture is not fully correct, but anyway, we can think about RPKI as a distributed database of signed objects. And the first object that is already available is called route origin validation, which is a pair of prefix and the autonomous system number. And if you get a cache of these objects, a cryptographically valid object, you then can check the validity of the first autonomous system in the path and the prefix. So a few words how it works. Let's say you are receiving a prefix from your upstream, peer, or customer. In case of ROA validation, it doesn't really matter. You are checking if there is a ROAS for selected prefix. If there is no ROAS, we cannot do anything, and the stage of this validation procedure is unknown. If there is a ROAS for selected prefix, we're checking that there is an intersection between autonomous system number that we see in the path and the set of autonomous system numbers that are authorized by ROAS. If there is intersection, the outcome is valid. So we believe that the route is good. And if there is no intersection but ROAS exist, the outcome is valid. So we see a prefix that should not exist. And the only policy that is applicable for ROA validation is reject invalid routes. You cannot make allow local preference value. You should, no, not should. You must reject that.
Well, just a second.
Sure.
So far, by the way, what we have been talking, for those who are not familiar with RPKI, very, very fast, let me summarize what's happening. Basically, by the way, for the IRR, big amount of like 40, 50, probably around 60% of the prefixes are covered in default-free zone with the IRR. But when it comes to RPKI, we are at, I think at the moment around 7-8% of the prefixes. Anyway, so what we are doing here, supposed to, of course, people, they are going to, at the moment, regional intent registries. They have all their portals, so you can go through and then you can create your ROA, route origin authorization object. So in RPKI environment, what it does, you basically say that, okay, these are my prefixes and I am the valid origin AS. So with this one, they create the certification and people now, okay, I created the ROA, but other people should validate this ROA. I mean, route origin validation. What does it mean? I say I am the valid origin, and regional intent registries, those 5 of them, they are creating certificate and they sign it. Cryptographically, it's signed object. And then other people basically what they should do, they can do is, okay, I basically decrypt it, and then I see that this is the valid origin. Now, if prefix comes, just Alexander was explaining the states, 3 states we can have: unknown, valid, and invalid. So, which mean prefix can be in unknown states if there is no ROA. Prefix can be invalid if there is someone other than in the certification, if someone is announcing with its own AS, so trying to cheat, and it is invalid. And if it is length and the prefix match with the origin AS, it is valid. So, and this is big discussion at the moment. I see invalid is reject policy. So people, when they do the invalid, when they see the invalid prefixes, either they should reduce to local pref, so it is it's still there. We are not rejecting, but reducing the local pref, or rejecting. Why you said, Alexander, we must? Why not? I mean, okay, this is the option. You can reduce the local pref or reject it. If you reject, what would be the consequences? If you reduce the local pref, let's talk about it. Because when you say must, I think there is no other choice. But I mean, local pref can be reduced.
Okay, I agree. Must in terms of ROA validation is too strict because there are exceptions. Exceptions that we would like to believe that are valid, even if ROA validation give us invalid result. The most known exception, of course, is black hole routes. Because of max length, I don't like max length. I think that max length should have been deprecated, but it's still there. But if we are not speaking about some very specific prefixes, such as or with a purpose that should not be propagated, such as black hole routes or something like this, and we are speaking, for example, about prefixes that are from some other party, and we see valid prefix and invalid. Why we can't just set a allow local preference? Because it might be a sub-prefix hijack. If you keep the local preference allow for a sub-prefix, it won't help you to protect your own traffic. Because if you just set a local preference to 0, it will still affect your traffic. It will still redirect your traffic, your egress traffic, to the I'm not speaking about the attacker, but I'm speaking about some small network that will not deliver your traffic to the destination.
But if ROA is created correctly, I mean, let's say you are saying /16 to /24, all of them, this length, because the beauty of RPKI that and the advantage compared to IRR, not only cryptography, but also you can specify the length. So you are saying /16 to /24, I am the owner, so someone cannot do still sub-prefix hijack, right?
You see, the length is very tricky. Mm-hmm. Imagine that you have an address space, and you have /16, and you created a row with length 16. So you are restricting advertisement of any sub-prefix. But as you said, the ROA deployment is coming, but it's still coming. It will not be a full and everywhere for years. And what happens if somebody somewhere will advertise your /24? It's invalid.
It's invalid.
But it's propagating.
It can. But what you are saying to the system that I am the also owner, so you are specifying the length and you are saying /24 can, I mean, only valid origin is me. So if someone still try to send the /24, it will be just invalid, and then you can just reduce the local pref to something else. I mean,
no, because see, you have signed your object, your address space, and you have a provider, this good provider, and he has already filtering in place. And but the mistake that results in the hijack happening in another part of the world. Just turn the globe and find a place that is far, far from you, and it's far, far from your upstream provider. And due to mistake, some smaller ISP is advertising your prefix, and you cannot send your own /24 to fight the hijack to get your traffic back, because your upstream provider will rejecting this prefix because it's invalid according to the max length. So max length is very tricky, and I suggest to use not to use it, but to set it to 24 for IPv4, or even 32 for IPv4 and 64 for IPv6, or 128 for IPv6.
Just a second here, Alexander, this is very important what you are saying. because okay, I am the customer, I have upstream what you are saying, and I sign the ROA myself and send to my upstream, and with the max length I am saying up to /24, I am the owner. Now why my upstream is rejecting, they don't accept, they see as invalid my /24.
Imagine that you have address space of /16, and you are sending to your upstream provider /16 prefix.
I am sending to them, but I am creating ROA and I am saying /16 to 24 is mine.
Yeah. This one is good. But if you say max length /16,
of course, then someone.
If in case of a hijack happening somewhere in the world, you will not be able to immediately to send your own subprefix. Because, okay, you will be able to advertise it, but your upstream provider, the good guy, will reject it.
Yeah, because they are doing, let's say, validation. But in the first place, then your assumption, I am doing something wrong on the max length field, and I am not specifying that up to /24 is mine. If I would do this in the first place and my upstream validation says, okay, up to /24, this guy, Orhan, is the owner, and then now someone try to cheat, let's say, and sending /24, of course, they cannot be successful. And if they will try to inject /25 because of default free zone, people are filtering /25, will not be acceptable anyway. So I got your point, why you are saying /24 in the max length should be specified.
Okay, good.
Agree with that, but when you say must, still
it's much better protection from hijacking of subspace.
Yes, subprefix, it will if you do that, it will basically prevent you to being subprefix hijacked. I got that point, but still now it is now, let's come to conclusion that if I do somehow mistake in my ROA creation on the max length field, then subprefix hijack can be successful. That's why, because of that.
It's a problem. So, but at the state of partial deployment, subprefix hijack will be successful.
And because of that, you are saying we need to.
So let's say, so if it is we are speaking about mistakes. Normally, mistakes are happening without forging the ASPA, and so the mistake hijack will the prefix will be advertised not from your tunnel system number, but from some foreign tunnel system number. So even changing max length, this will not make these mistake hijacks valid according to ROAs, because still, even if you are going to set max length to but 24, the parties that are performing origin validation will be able to detect the hijack and reject it. But you will be also keep the opportunity to instantly deaggregate your prefixes. That's the idea.
You know that there are tools such as Nocturne that happen to do that, right?
So personally, I don't like max length. I do believe it's brings a lot of confusion to ROA validation, because it's supposed to help, but the state of partial adoption, it can turn things to the worse.
Okay. But I got your point now. What you are saying, because subprefix hijack can be successful, only option, that's why when you say must, it's understandable now. So if you will reduce the local pref to something else, not rejecting invalids, so basically it will not be effective at all. And in fact, with the reduced local pref, you will prefer that invalid prefix.
Yes.
Because longest match will win.
Yeah. Correct. So we're getting back to our wonderful drawing, and again, the IS4 is doing its best to hijack address space from IS1. Now we have ROA. ROA that says that the prefix belongs to IS1. And if again, the IS4 will be cheating ISSet and advertise prefix from its own autonomous system number, user will win. So the autonomous system 3 will see a prefix from autonomous system 4 with autonomous system 4 in the path, and thus we'll say, oh, ROA validation invalid, rejected. That's what we were just discussing. But unfortunately, the IS path is just an attribute. The attribute of BGP that can be malformed or changed to whatever you want. There is nearly all open source softwares and software from vendors provides a way to change the IS path. And so by adding valid autonomous system number in the beginning of the path, the attacker is able to overcome ROA validation procedures by the upstream providers. And his succeeds and redirects traffic from the victim.
So basically, guys, AS3 was, let's say, doing the validation, and then AS1 is creating its ROAs for the prefix. What's happening here, AS4, which is the attacker, is advertising the prefixes of AS1 with the autonomous system of his own, but it's also saying that I am connecting to AS1. So RPKI is doing what? Origin validation. What does it mean? So as long as in the BGP update AS1 is there as an origin AS, so AS3's validation will be valid. But here AS4, what it is doing, path shortening attack. So it's saying that I am connected to the AS1. So RPKI will say fine. AS3's validation will say it is fine. It's correct update. That's why AS4 will win this basically. And I mean, attacker will win. Attacker path will be chosen. It means what we are saying.
Yeah. So key findings about ROA validation.
By the way, Alexander, can you go back to previous slide? I will say something there. Because normally,
okay, sure.
Yeah, this one, let's say doing exact prefix hijack, not sub-prefix, exact prefix hijack, so same AS length, let's say, same prefix length. AS4 is sending as I am connected to AS1. So AS3 is seeing through the top path AS1, AS2, 2 AS path length, and from the AS4, it's seeing AS1, AS4. It's also 2 AS path length. What will be the best path decision?
You can flip the coin.
Okay. Sometimes sometimes can win, sometimes cannot.
Yeah. So even in this case, even though we're speaking about malicious activity, signing your address space is useful because it's a good point that attacker will need to increase its IS path length.
Yeah.
It will not guarantee that its prefixes will be less preferable than your prefixes.
And because of this,
increases your chances in this fight to get your traffic back.
Because of this, actually, I wrote a blog post to show the dangerous point of prepending the AS path multiple times. Because now, for the exact prefix hijack, you are increasing the chance of attacker to win. Yeah.
Yeah, it's right. So, getting back to the findings. Role. I'm sorry for that because I don't understand why it's keep.
No, that's okay. As long as we are seeing fine now. ROA validation.
Yeah. It sounds something my laptop is doing at the background. It seems that it's switching from the full screen. Mm-hmm. Yes, again.
When you touch something, it's happening.
No, I'm just saying. Go back. No, I'm not touching anything. You can silence. Okay, let's try. So it's happening from time to time, and I don't understand the reason. ROA validation is very useful to filter mistake hijacks. When someone accidentally advertising your address space. It's happening from time to time. Recently, it again happened, for example, in the Rostelecom network, affecting thousands of networks. And the reason of this is some have some kind of static routes, and they are launching BGP, and this results in hijacks for the victims. Unfortunately, ROA validation can't be used to fully protect against malicious activity. It's not supposed to work for route leaks at all. And if one have a malicious intent, you will still be able to forge ASPA and that way to bypass filters based on ROA validation.
Okay. So at the moment, let me for the audience, let me add a couple things. Why it is not working for the route leak, guys? It actually should be very obvious, but let me summarize. If you let's say receive the prefix from one of your upstream and advertise to another upstream, right? What happens? You are being a transit, so you are telling to another upstream that origin AS is the upstream one. So basically, this is route leak, and this is totally legitimate operation. But maybe you are doing mistake, just receiving the prefixes from upstream and advertising to another one, which is doing route leak. And then let's say upstream 2 is doing the validation. What it will do? Origin AS is transit 1, so upstream 1. That's why it will be valid advertisement for that. That's why the RPKI will not work in this case. Of course, this example can be extended to peers as well, not only upstream. If you receive from peers and advertise to another peer, or if you receive from peer to advertise upstream, or if you receive from upstream and advertise to peer. These are all route leak, and RPKI cannot do anything for that one. Alexander is saying here, ROA validation cannot be used for the filter route leaks. Basically, he's saying this one. And malicious hijack, basically, not maybe route leak, but let's say I am intentionally doing, I am intentionally showing that I am connected to the origin, although you are not maybe connected. You are saying that I am connected to origin to bypass origin validation with the RPKI or IRR, both of them. So none of them, RPKI or IRR, cannot be used basically for the hijacks, malicious hijack or route leak, guys. And for this one, now he will come to pet validation, which will be our main topic anyway. So, by the way, Alexander.
No. Not so fast. We first
not
to show the
right. Okay.
And also we need to discuss the adoption state of ROA validation, which is very important because during 1 year, it increased from 10% to nearly 20% of ISPs that have already signed their address space. And if you haven't signed your address space yesterday, you can still do it tomorrow, today, or for example, tomorrow. It's useful. It will take 5 minutes of your time, normally. And in return, significant number of internet exchange points, some huge transit carriers, some content providers will be able to detect that your prefix was hijacked and rejected, and thus keep your connectivity safe. And also, of course, you should consider using ROA validation on your own side, because there is a set of open source implementations of RPKI cache, and it's easy to install. There are some of them that are good working from the box. You just follow the guidance, and you have the RPKI cache that is working. It's really good. I've tried them; they work. And first, so 2 points: sign your address space. It's a good time. It will bring you immediate benefit, and takes only 5 minutes. And consider using origin validation on your side too, because by signing, you are protecting your ingress traffic. Yes, ingress traffic. By performing origin validation, you are protecting your egress traffic. So, and I promised you a bicycle. So, ROA validation is working, but it's half of the solution. And you were right to say that we need ASPA validation to get the full bicycle. So that will give us a chance to verify both the origin and the ASPA.
Half of it probably, I mean, we cannot say maybe measurable numerical number for it, but I mean, very tiny, very small problem space it's solving, though it's still maybe useful, though probably connecting, you know, more peering, more direct peering would be even much more beneficial in this case. But anyway, so yes, it is solving some problems. RPKI specifically.
I believe that if we're speaking about accidental events that are happening in BGP, it solves. Okay, I can't say that it is half of the incidents that are happening because accidental hijacks are more rare than accidental route leaks, unfortunately, these days, because accidental hijacks is some kind of wrong input between protocols, and the accidental route leaks is just wrong BGP configuration. It's much easier to perform. But anyway, it's useful, and I've seen how these kinds of incidents are affecting connectivity. And at Yandex, we are already performing. We have already signed our address space, plus we are performing origin validation. And it's useful.
So
it's useful when somebody makes a huge mistake.
Are you rejecting invalids or reducing local path?
We are rejecting invalids.
Okay, excellent. So by the way,
and
everyone knows, I think, Yandex anyway, and there are other large OTTs, CDNs, etc. They are now rejecting invalids. Plus, even from tier ones, we are hearing anymore. Not maybe every every sessions, BGP session, but at least some of them now customers, some of them both customer and peer, like Telia, I remember recently they announced as well, I am following. So, yeah, big networks, they started.
As far as I know, the party is joined by AT&T, partially Telia, and there is also a huge player, NTT. That finally rejecting invalids that are coming, I believe, from all sides, peers and customers.
Also, not. I think Telia is not doing partially. Telia also doing both peers and customers. As far as I remember,
was not following it very carefully recently. So it's if we have already two tier ones that are filtering all invalids. It's really good.
Yeah, of course.
We need only 10 more, and it will significantly affect the way invalids are propagating.
Yeah.
So we are moving to ASPA validation procedures. And of course, we need to start speaking about BGPSEC. BGPSEC, one may call a new BGP because it has so much difference in the update messages and so on. That's it's nearly a new protocol. But I hope it will not become a BGP5. And first, let's look at what was the idea behind these updates to BGP. The idea was that when peer is sending prefix to its neighbor, it's signing the direction in which the prefix is sent. So if I'm out on system 1, I will, and I'm sending my prefix to out on system 2, I will add in my advertisement a signature that will say that the recipient is out on system 2. And so we have a sequence of signatures, and the attacker cannot go inside. We have the beginning of the ICE path that is secured with ROA, and the ICE path itself that is secured by the sequence of signatures. That was the idea.
By the way, Alexander, when AS3 receive the announcement from AS2, it will see that AS2 will tell to AS3 that it's coming from AS1 and it's going to AS3. So both downstream and upstream.
Yeah. So it will see the full set of signatures.
Yeah.
And so it will be able to verify the ISPA from the beginning to the last autonomous system in the path.
And by the way, we are not what we are here. We should definitely say, people should understand, because this will be a big problem later on for us. RPKI, that validation is decryption. So you are basically decrypting all the certificates, but all this cryptography is done on the validator, which is external software. You are not doing on the router. That's why it's called also offline cryptography. But here, PET validation with BGPSEC, this signature is also cryptography. And when, let's say, AS3 receive, it needs to decrypt on the router, not third-party software, on the router, online cryptography. It needs to decrypt and check all the signature on each and every PET. So that's why this will be a big problem for processing later on. Okay.
Yeah, it's very important part that these computational overhead is unaffordable by the current routers, and so. But let's. I will discuss this tool, but let's see how it works in our scenario when IS4 is still trying to hijack address space belonging to IS1. Now we have ROA, and let's say that everybody can speak BGPSEC. And so we have all signed paths, and if IS4 will just try to hijack address space belonging to IS1 without changing the IS path, it will be detected because of ROA validation procedure. If next, it will try to forge IS path like it was in the previous example, and add autonomous system 1 in the beginning of the IS path and create this kind of signature. It will not work because IS4 will not be able to create a valid signature that will say that IS1 was sending prefix to IS4. It may happen only in kind of replay attacks, but
because AS1 will not tell that to IS4 that you are my upstream.
Upstream peer, whatever it is, where they just don't have connection, and the IS4 is not able to perform even a replay attack.
Yeah.
But there is a problem. As I was telling you, that BGPSEC is nearly a new protocol, and it required backward compatibility. And to bypass possible filters that are built on top of BGPSEC, you need one thing.
Don't deploy.
You need not to support BGPSEC.
Yeah.
That's all. So we have a security solution, and to bypass it, the attacker needs not to support security solution.
Yeah.
It's interesting, at least. And of course, after that, it needs to add its autonomous system number in the beginning of this path, and with this, it will be able to bypass it. There are some theories about BGPSEC islands where the networks will prefer address space that is signed, routes that are signed for the address space that are not signed, but it's a theory that I believe it's not going to fly anyway. So BGPSEC, it is capable to detect hijacks, if even malicious hijacks, if attackers will support BGPSEC. It's vulnerable to downgrade attacks, and because of the great computational overhead, I've heard no plans from anybody to support usage of BGPSEC. Current routers, enterprise routers, are not capable to even verify ROAs, so to build the ROA cache. And so that's why ROA cache is normally made on the standalone server, and there is RTR protocol that synchronizes data between cache and the router, so that the router is not capable to check the signatures that are coming from trusted anchors.
Mm-hmm.
There is no chance they will be able to check signatures that are coming for each update. And we need bicycle that will have a representation for the BGPSEC.
We need Ferrari.
Yeah, because with this bicycle, it's very unclear who is the right. So there was another approach that started its life even before BGPSEC. And during discussions at the ITF, BGPSEC won the battle, and so it was abandoned. And it was called SoBGP.
Secure Origin BGP, right? We are talking about Secure Origin BGP.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The idea was that we will use some external information about links that do exist in the reality. So networks will sign in some database. The original idea was that it will be also done in the BGP, but let's say it will be some kind of external database that will say that one network is telling that I have a link with another network. If another network also says that it has a link with network XY, we can say that this pair is trustable. But what can we say if there is only one part of the pair? Because networks are different. One may sign it, one may not. So we cannot say that one pair is invalid. We can only say that it is less trustable.
Mm-hmm.
And so the draft suggested that we use some kind of function that will add trust when the pair is trustable and decrease trust when it's again happening. I feel it's getting worse. When it's not working. Just closes the screen the moment I...
Now it's okay.
Now it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And decreases the trust when there is only one part of the pair. So we have some kind of function, a mathematical function that says 24 or 38 or any other random number. And the network engineer should decide if it's valid or invalid. So
you will probably put some threshold, etc. If it is more than 20, let's consider it's valid, etc. Okay.
Yeah. Another problem that happens to BGP design is transparent internet exchange points. The internet exchange points try to believe that they are not part of routing. So they do not add their autonomous system number in the path. This position is arguable, but it is real life, and nearly everybody is not adding its autonomous system number. Every IX is not adding its autonomous system number in the path. And so we have a proxy. We have an IX path where it makes me anxious. When autonomous system 1,
it's okay.
I will try, then I can, for example, go from these slides, but I will then try to stop. It starts again if it keeps working like this. I'm sorry.
No problem.
Okay. So we have this kind of indirect adjacencies, and they will be not able to create records with each other because they just don't know. When you're peering with RS, you're peering with RS. You're not peering with thousands or hundreds of other autonomous system numbers that are present in the ICE. And this presence is also very dynamic.
Okay, but okay, just a second. On that peering router, let's say, when you see the prefixes, you are seeing the ASPA, so you know actually who you are peering with anyway. So with this one, cannot you do this operation? I mean, cannot you say that, okay, and even you can create probably a list into the database. Okay, in London IX links, I am basically peering with...
Can you imagine that your router will start registering for you RPKI or any other kind of objects? Your router software will go to the APIs and register something.
No, but maybe you can do manually. What do you say? What about doing the manual operation yourself?
Making a manipulation yourself will work if you will be collecting this data, for example, every day, because the question which will happen not between members of the IXS, but several hops away by the customers who will receive an ISPA that have parts that's with pairs that doesn't even exist.
And also you're probably those guys today there, but maybe after a year they will leave there, and you need to update your database all the time.
So such kind of approach is very, very complicated.
Yeah.
You need to retrieve all pairs from your ISPA and then automatically register them. It's hard, at least.
Yeah, it is not scalable. You cannot do that,
It's hardly scalable, yes. And it's really unlikely that all members of the IXS will be eager to support it.
Okay.
So you are getting a lot of complexity in your operations for, it's hard to say what you're getting back.
Mm-hmm.
As a result, SoBGP out of box can detect bogan routes when, for example, some private autonomous system numbers are in the path. With SoBGP, you can create some security function that will say to you that what is less trustable, what is more trustable, but it will be duty of network engineer to decide where is the threshold and which prefixes should be accepted and which prefixes should be rejected. And it's very unclear how to make it robust. It's not supposed to filter route leaks at all, because there is no policy information. It's just information about pairs of autonomous systems.
And then based on the threshold, let's say, and who will decide that threshold, by the way? Will IANA or ITF or someone will suggest any numerical number? Okay, you should set the 20, 30, blah, blah. Probably not. So when you do that, this solution, it seems that it's hard.
It's something like this.
Yeah.
You can try to make your own metrics by your own without any kind of support and no forecast for the consequences that may happen.
And you will decide something, and another network will decide other things. Again, it will end up with many different type of deployments. And my policy again is my policy. Your policy is again your policy. Will create some type of BGP veggies and those kind of things. Okay.
So there is no chance to get some general policy that will be applicable for majority of networks. It will be some state of art for each network.
Mm-hmm.
So we need something new. We need a new tool. So we have a lot of them, and we need another one that will finally solve our problems. Because our security quadrant looks like this. We have tools to detect mistaked hijacks. For this kind of problem, IRR filters and ROAs are useful. We have some tools and some proposals to detect mistake route leaks. And we have nothing for malicious activity. If tomorrow there will be 10 attacks using BGP, it will be really hard to figure out what is happening.
Mm-hmm.
And we would like to avoid this situation when we will be forced to fight attackers in the mailing lists, discussing where it's happening, trying to reach responsible people, trying to reach upstreams of the attacker and ask them, please stop your customer from doing nasty things. It's not scalable, and we want a tool that will be applicable to majority of networks, a tool that will be easy to use on current infrastructure without waiting for 2 decades before our routers will become as powerful as current service. But before inventing something, we need to clearly specify our goals.
Yeah.
The previous approaches were trying to make a general purpose ASPA verification. In reality, we don't need ASPA verification. We need to stop propagation of hijacks and route leaks.
What you are saying, we don't need ASPA verification, but we need...
So the goal should not be we need ASPA verification. The goal should be we need to stop propagation of route leaks and hijacks.
Yes, I mean you are setting the goal, and there might be lots of different tools, whichever is doing this. Yeah.
Sure. Because as we have already seen, the general purpose ASPA verification approaches have failed. So that's why reinventing goals is very important. We should focus on what we need, but not on some kind of academic or theoretical good results. And of course, it should be lightweight. So what's happening?
It's okay. So that's each and every point is understandable. At least this is important. So
yeah,
lightweight, no significant changes. BGPSEC was changing a lot of things. In fact, Alexander was just saying that even ASPA attribute is changing to BGPSEC ASPA attribute, something like that. And BGP best path selection ordering is also changing. I mean, so many things is changing with BGPSEC from the BGP implementation point of view. Not only cryptography is a problem, but really a lot of things are changing with the BGPSEC. And so not lightweight, significant amount of change anyway. And incremental deployment, I think the most biggest issue today, preventing lots of good protocols to deploy. Biggest example, IPv6.
And so let's speak about anomaly propagation. So if we look at the prefixes, for example, hijacked or leaked, if it has the same weight of propagation as just a regular or valid prefix, it goes up through the customer to provider links. After that, it may go again up or go to the peers, and after that, it starts to go down. And if we will be able to stop its propagation when it goes up, we nearly solve the problem. Because if it will not be propagated through upstream links and through the peers, we are done.
So just a second. This is very, very important. So will we try to stop from attacker to upstream, that customer to provider, or will we try to stop from attacker to upstream, then from that upstream to its upstream and peers? All this, whatever we are seeing in the picture, which one?
We will focus so that our method will be applicable first to links with customers and peers. Because if providers of the attacker will be able to detect it's a malicious activity, We don't need any other party to filter prefixes.
Okay.
We don't need even customers to
as possible.
Yeah.
What is that, Jeff? I didn't understand.
You need to stop it as soon as possible, the closer to the edge as possible.
Okay.
Yeah, correct. And there is a wonderful note about these paths, the paths that are received from customers and providers. A valid road received from customer or a peer may have in its ASPA only customer to provider pairs. If it has something else, it's invalid. It may be malicious, it may be mistake, but it is an invalid path. And that's why to detect this kind of malicious activity, the only thing we need is a distributed database of customer to provider pairs. And if we are speaking about distributed database, which is global, of some objects that can be checked, of course we are getting back to RPKI.
So just a second. What I am understanding, provider will tell. So this is like RPKI database is there. You can already use this one, let's say, and provider will create some type of object, again, maybe similar to ROA. It will create an object and it will say, these are my customers?
No.
Okay.
The customer will create an object and say, this is my providers.
And provider needs to somehow authorize this, right? It will say.
No. It's not like a SoBGP where we need both directions. In this case, it's enough that only customer is signing the object.
And you see, it's about right incentives. In this case, you are the customer, you're interested for your provider to accept your traffic. So it's your personal incentive to make the object working, right?
Okay, but what if as a customer I am trying to cheat and creating a false object?
We will jump to it in a minute.
Okay.
And we will go look at the scenario and see that this time it will not be working.
Let's see.
And so, first I will describe ASPA object. So, it's a customer autonomous system number, the source of the object, and it signs its providers. It may have different objects for IPv4 and for IPv6. So it's also have a different design from ROAs. So you don't have a list of records, but in one record you are listing all your providers. It's important for some very specific cases that may happen at the level of the cache. And if you're interested, you can take a look at what is happening now at site ROAs. The people are getting really anxious about it. But ASPA is safe. It's one object, selected autonomous system number, and everything will be fine.
Are jobs allowed? Anyway,
job what?
IPv10, otherwise MR is going to sue.
Jeff, I'm not hearing you well. Can you repeat, please?
You have to include IPv10, otherwise MR is going to sue you.
You need to. You need to also.
You have to.
IPv10,
not IPv4, v6 only.
Okay. I got it. It was a joke. Okay. So let's proceed. Let's take a look at the pair verification procedure. It's very important. It looks familiar for us because it was what we have had in ROA. But here we don't have a candidates because we have a simple record with a list of providers. So to verify that the pair is correct, the correct pair of customer to provider, we are for autonomous system 1, we are retrieving a record for autonomous system 1. If there is no record, the state will be unknown. We don't know if the pair correct or incorrect. If IS2 is included in the list of providers, registered providers, it's valid. If IS2 is not included in the list, it's invalid. So it's very, very simple. And
just a second. Just a second.
Sure.
What I understand is, can you go back to previous? This one, okay. So AS1 is the customer, AS2 is the provider. AS1 creates a ASPA object and says that AS2 is my provider. And this is cryptographically also signed, right? This is signed object. And through regional interregistries, same procedure like RPKI, very simple step to create this object as well. And then what's happening when the validator, I think not on the router, but again the validator software, right? Here proposal, validator software check the states of the each BGP update. If in the update AS2 is seen as the provider of AS1, then it is valid state. If no ASPA object at all, it is unknown. And if other than AS2 is there as a provider of AS1, this is invalid. Is this correct?
Partially. So the idea is that so I will go to the next slide because there will be a full procedure of verification.
Let's go through.
Because so we have two parts of a verification procedure. First part, we received a route from customer or peer. We're checking that the last autonomous system in the path is our is the autonomous system of our neighbor. So that it will just check that our neighbor is not tricking us, and he exists in the ISPA. We also will use ROA validation. And the second point is that if we are receiving prefix from customer or peer, the sequence should be customer to provider, customer to provider, customer to provider. So each pair will be verified independently until we find the invalid pair. So let's see how it works. Again, IS4 is trying to hijack address space that belongs to IS1. And first, it tries again to advertise it from its own autonomous system number. And this kind of hijack will be detected by IS3 with ROA, because IS1 have created ROA, and as we discussed already, it will be able to see that this kind of advertisement is invalid. Now, IS4 is trying to forge IS path. It's adding autonomous system 1 in the IS path. But according to ASPA, IS1 have only one provider, IS2. It was not listed in IS4. And the pair IS1, IS4 is invalid. And thus, IS3 is able to say that, no, this IS path is forged. I'm not going to accept this prefix.
AS3 will say that, right?
Now again.
AS3 will say that.
IS3, yes. I said something else? Yes.
No, maybe I missed. Okay.
IS4 will still try to find a way how to bypass the filters. It's ability at the level of IS3, and so it will add two IS paths, or two autonomous systems in the path, IS1 and IS2. The IS1, IS2 pair is valid, but pair IS2, IS4 is invalid, because now IS2 was listing only IS3, and again, IS3 is able to say that this path is invalid and reject such announcement.
Okay, just a second now. So far, very good, and in fact, it is very simple as well. Very nice. But let's say AS1 is really connected to AS4, or AS2 is really connected to AS4. What will happen?
let me jump to the next slide, and after that I will get back to your question.
So,
okay?
Yeah, sure.
And the last chance in this scenario is to disappear from the path. So IS4 may try to remove itself from the IS path and say, oh, no, there is no IS4, there is only IS1 and IS2. And here the first rule helps us, because IS3 must check that the sender exists in the IS path, and it is the last autonomous system number in the IS path. And that's why even by forging IS path that doesn't include the originating autonomous system number, it will not be able to bypass filters. So, getting back to your question, what if IS1 and IS4 have a connection?
I mean, AS4 might be the provider of AS1.
It's true, and this is kind of limitation. So in the world of ASPA, an attack may still happen from your provider.
Okay.
But it greatly limits the scope of the attack.
Sure.
So the party that have an agreement with you, and it might normally signed, and you are paying, is very unlikely to attack you. Attack you with purpose.
Let's see. What if AS4 is the upstream of AS1, but attack is not coming from AS4, but another customer of AS4, let's say. What would it work? Let's say there is AS5. Let's say there is AS5. AS5 is connected to AS4. AS4 is the provider of them, and also AS4 is the provider of AS1. So would it work? Yeah.
If IS4 will perform filtering, it will not be working, because we will get back to the same situation when IS5 will not be able to create a path that will be valid.
Yeah.
If we are speaking about the state of partial deployment, it is less obvious, but still, for default-free networks, such as Internet Exchange Points and Tier 1s, they just need to create ISP 0. ISP 0, it's just the same as the ROA 0. It's a signal for other networks that my autonomous system number should never be seen from your customers and peers. And this is quite enough to secure these networks from any kind of malicious activity. No islands like in BGPSEC, no relying parties. For other networks, their security will rely on their providers. So Tier 2 will rely on Tier 1, Tier 3 will rely on Tier 2. You will be secure as soon as you have a secured path of ASPA records from you to Tier 1.
Jeff, what do you see other than provider is attacking? So as a limitation, do you see any other limitation in this ASPA solution? What do you think? I mean,
no, it's actually, besides kind of religious view on it, it's really a working solution that should be widely supported.
If Jeff says that, I like it then. So, I mean, from my aspect, easily, I mean, when I see that, okay, because customer is creating this object, and somehow if AS4 is really connected to AS1, so which means AS1 to AS4 pair will be in the ROA, will be in the ASPA object, so it would work. I mean, attacker in this case, if the provider is the attacker as well, would work. But this is, let's think about the real life. I mean, reality. So other than this, I couldn't see.
IS1, if IS4 will start working like this, IS1 can revoke its object, and so we'll just remove IS4 from ASPA.
How long it will take to propagate that object, by the way?
Today, it depends on the way RPKI cache are updated globally, and today it takes a couple of hours.
Yeah.
But it's much less than days compared to ISS.
Sure.
I think the point being, in general, it's not just the technology, right? It's how easy it is to implement and put in right incentives.
Yeah. So, for example, you can update
this
your...
solution seems to find the right balance between who should be doing the work, in whose interest it is, and the amount of complexity it takes to deploy it, and let's say amount of money you need to invest. That's why secure BGP didn't work, right? Because we couldn't afford on-box encryption, decryption. So from this perspective, it seems to find the right balance within all those different variables.
I mean, I don't see this one is much different than RPKI at all. I mean, even the database can be used, regional internet registry environment can be reused. I mean, lots of things can be reused, whatever we are doing with the RPKI. That's why
that's the idea.
Partial deployment
so
is...
It doesn't mean it's similar, right? You could have a database and store Shakespeare or just a bunch of garbage.
Yeah.
It depends.
Another thing is this: you can partially deploy. Not 100% deployment is necessary to be seeing the effectiveness of the solution. So with BGPSEC, anyway, you need.
Speaking about the coverage that you need, I was going to discuss it later, but I can say that at Yandex, I've made a test deployment of this technology. It is not on the router software, because router software, unfortunately, is out of our control, but we made it on top of BMP. And to detect route leaks that are happening in the wild, it was enough to have 18 ASPA records, only for well-known tier ones and for Yandex itself.
Wow.
That's all.
I got
and with the, I was able to detect. So it was much easier to build this tool than to fight PowerPoint. With this tool, I was able to detect on both route leaks that are happening for some prefixes and affecting our egress traffic and both ingress traffic. But I think it's a nice talk for some other time, because I will need to dig in what is BMP and how to use it and how to combine it with the ASPA. Let's focus on ASPA.
We are talking about...
Great topic for another podcast, right? BMP is great technology. Finally, everybody...
And next time we will not use PowerPoint.
Yeah.
So, okay, there is actually one question. There is one question, it's interesting. Let's a little bit discuss about that. What if the question, how would this work with the provider migration? Let's say today AS2 is the provider of AS1. It can change, of course. AS3 will become maybe provider of AS1. AS1 will prefer that. So in this case, AS1 needs to just create new ASPA object that AS3 is my provider. Put into the provider list.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just this, nothing else.
Yeah, and if AS1 leaves AS2 entirely, so it will remove from the provider list in the ASPA object. That's it.
Yeah. So AS1 is interested to keep this data valid.
Exactly.
Again, right incentives.
Mm-hmm. And the point is, some people might think that, okay, similar to IRR, this customer can cheat, right? Customer can, but why customer should cheat in the first place, right? They want to protect. If they are creating this object to protect their prefixes, they don't want to anyway cheat. But in fact, even if they would want, or let's say they are doing something mistake, they are doing this operation on the regional internet registry, I think you are proposing, and I think RIRs, they have some validation that, okay, if the let's say customer AS1 says that these are my prefixes, right? And for actually, there is no prefix involved in ASPA at all, right? just you are declaring. Yeah. There is no prefix announcement anyway. This is ROA. So you are declaring your announcement. That's it. So in this aspect, still there is a mistake possibility, because maybe fat fingering, and instead of AS2, you can say AS12 is my upstream. But then Who will validate that?
Do not affecting anybody except your own autonomous system and your customers.
That's right. That's right. But if you do that, let's say AS12 is my upstream, can RIR validate this and then?
No, IRR will not able to validate it. It's just if you are signing a ROA, you should sign it for correct autonomous system number. Yeah. Just the same here. But the cost of the mistake is nearly zero. And so in the world of ISET, your provider was interested to add your autonomous system number or your ISET in the ISET. And he was not interested to remove it because it was not affecting its operations. Here, the situation is different. The customer adding its provider, and he is interested to remove it the moment he stops working with this provider.
The problem is, if this is widely deployed and if customer makes a mistake, it will affect that customer network, right? That the customer network will be affected. But
not third party.
Yeah, not third party, but the actually IRR and RPKI opposite. So whoever you are advertising someone else's prefixes, those guys will be affected, not you.
If I got you correctly, so even you're creating your ASPA records, so listing all networks in the world will not affect other networks.
So with the ASPA, yes, customer is affecting himself. But with the IRR, let's say, if you are with the IRR opposite, you affect other people, nothing happens to you.
Yeah. So the garbage that happens in IRR will not spread from the edge to the top. It will be local. It will be local and stuck to the network that makes a mistake.
Okay, cool. So we talked about the limitation. By the way, what about the current status? I mean, in IETF where it is, are we expecting to soon to be seen as a RFC? Any interest from other people like? Yeah.
Be patient. I will go to this,
okay.
And this is a very important slide. And there are some new slides that I haven't showed even at Nanoc because there is a very recent deployment. So with the original design of ASPA, we were able to detect leaks that are happening and hijacks, whatever it happens, when prefixes are received from customers and peers. But for example, if I'm a content provider or some very clever edge customer, if there is a way to join the party, so with that I will be also able to detect at least mistake route leaks with ASPA. And it proved out that there is a way. Let's say there is a kind of a nice picture. IS1, and so it shows how the IS5 is seeing prefixes that are sent to it from providers. So IS1 is a customer of IS2, IS2 is, and IS4 is customers of IS3, and there is IS5. IS5 tries to verify what is coming from its provider. So it looks for an opportunity to detect route leaks and, for example, reject them. Such an opportunity is missed in all kinds of current route leak detection mechanisms, because you are not able to verify anything with IRR that is coming from your upstream providers, and even those proposals that are targeting route leaks do not have such an opportunity. So, if we will apply ASPA directly on this path, what we will see? We will see that IS3 and IS4 are not a customer to provider pair.
Provider to customer pair, right? So here AS3 is the provider of AS4, and if we see ASPA object AS3, AS4, this would be invalid.
Yeah.
We should see AS4, AS4, AS3.
Yeah.
Okay.
there is a mistake on the slide. So let's say A3 is 0. So yeah, there is a mistake on this slide. So if we will check the pair AS3 and AS4, the outcome will be invalid. But in this case, when we are working with downstream path, it's okay, because it signals that the path may consist of upstream path and then downstream path, and it shows when there was a turning side. So when there was a flip, and after that the prefix just go all the time down. And with the ASPA, we can check that it goes all the time down. So let's see the next slide. Just in the same example, but IS3 is making a mistake. We're not speaking here about malicious activity, but what is more common now, it's IS3 is leaking the prefix that it received from IS2 to IS4. And in this case, we will see that pair IS2, IS3 is invalid. And this shows that after that, the prefix should go only down, because after it reaches some upstream provider or peer, it goes down to provider to custom, to provider to custom, to provider to custom.
Okay, I think it's now fine. Now what you are saying, AS2 to AS3 is invalid, and it's going down. If after that, if it would be the path AS3 to AS6, let's say, and AS6 is the downstream of AS3, it would be fine, but not up.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. That's the idea. And as in this example, so with ASPA, we will be able to see that the first invalid pair, and after that, if we see another reversed invalid
pair, then what will happen? Yeah.
Yeah, we will be able to say that it's a route leak.
And if we detect this route leak, what will happen?
Again, it's at the level of IS5. If we detect a route leak, we need to reject it, because a route leak may affect the way we are sending traffic. And the only policy that is applicable for this case, reject without any worries.
By the way, Alexander,
without a leak.
Question is, you are saying AS5 when it sees these ASPA objects, right? By the way, there are multiple questions now. AS5. Let's say source is AS1, and exactly this is the path. AS5 received the BGP update. Now it will be able to see all these 4 ASPA objects, or 4 of them, right?
Yeah. So it has information about ASPA objects.
All these 4 will be there for this path, and then it will see that 2 to 3 and 4 to 3 is invalid, and subsequent invalid 2 of them I see in the AS path. So this should be route leak. I shouldn't accept this, right? AS5 point of view, you said.
Yes.
But what about AS4? AS4 can do the same thing here, because AS4 also will receive 2 invalids back to back.
Sure. But it receives 1 invalid. But let's say at the state of partial adoption, IS4 is not performing ASPA validation. It created an object, but do not reject such prefixes for whatever reason. At the state of partial adoption, we will meet such situations most of the time. This helps a clever customer, for example, a small network or a content provider, to join the party without waiting for its upstream provider to start filtering invalid routes.
I got your point.
Very important,
here in this example.
A very important reason for even edge networks to deploy this kind of filtering.
Not only filtering, I mean, to let's say AS1 point of view, if it's creating ASPA object, AS5 can be, let's say, content provider and upstream of content provider AS5, AS4, let's say, and AS4 is not deploying this solution at all. AS5 still can verify the ASPA object which is created by AS1.
Yeah.
Got your point.
Yeah.
So partial deployment is possible with this. And by the way, AS4 point of view, I want to think now. AS4, when it will receive AS1, AS2, AS2, AS3, and AS4, AS3 is wrong anyway, because it should be AS3, AS4. So AS4, when it sees this top 3 object, AS4 point of view, also 2 back-to-back invalid objects, right?
If AS4 will deploy ASPA-based filtering, it will be great. But let's say, imagine that the filtering not in place yet. AS4 is cogent. It haven't yet performed ROA validation, and for some reason it will not start. It will not be the first one to deploy ASPA-based verification. But
in other words, if S4 would have deployed it, you wouldn't even receive the update. But since
sure.
You will get it and you will be able to do it.
Okay. This is now fine. If AS4 would deploy ASPA filtering, AS5 in the first place wouldn't receive this update. But if AS4 let's say don't deploy, still AS5 is able to do, because in the ASPA2 invalid back-to-back it will see. Okay, now fully clear. What about this question? If today I am not deploying any ROA and I am not verifying any ROA, still can I do the ASPA filtering?
In theory, yes, but it will be less effective, because if we are speaking again about malicious activity, to prevent and detect malicious activity, you should use both ROA validation and ASPA verification. Only together these solutions can fill the gap. So I will just jump to this slide.
So I mean, because this question comes to like this, can ASPA itself without RPKI can do it ROA? I mean, can do it origin validation? No. That's why origin validation technique we need. Okay.
Yeah. So it's they have different purpose, and they are working even better if they are combined.
Yes.
So ASPA without ROA can fight mistake route leaks. ROA without ASPA can fight mistake hijacks. Together, they can fill the gap of to detect malicious activity. Maybe one day we will end up with this kind of system. I will be glad to see it, but it will be one day.
What do you mean?
Alexander, are you working on any tooling that would be open source?
Yes, not me exactly, but my colleague Evgeny Bogomazov have already worked on the bird, and so there is a fork of bird that already supports ISP policy that is capable to verify both upflow path and downflow path. And I'm also working on some monitoring on top of BMP. I'm not sure if it will be open source, but I will at least describe it. And I can say that this BMP plus ASPA monitoring is already working at Yandex, and it showed great results.
Okay.
As I was saying, that only with 18 ASPA records, it was already possible to detect all kinds of, most of route leaks that are coming from all directions, from peers, and most important, from our providers.
For the listener, by the way, BMP is BGP monitoring protocol, which gives us the ability to see in even agency ripping database. So the prefixes which are not filtered, etc., pure agency ripping database. So by the way, my question is this. Solution is now very clear. It's almost 2 hours now, and really thank you very much for the time. So we've seen the pet validation, why it was needed, origin validation couldn't solve, route leaks, etc. Then pet validation was necessary, and then we talked about some techniques like BGPSEC and SoBGP, and we've seen the drawbacks of those solutions as well. We talked, and these are generally known, by the way, especially the BGPSEC resource consumption issue, etc. Online cryptography and problems with it, known. And then ASPA is now understood. What about the vendor adoption? So big vendors like Cisco, Juniper, Huawei, how they approach to this solution? Alexander.
The all feedback that I got from vendors, from REERs, which is very important, is quite positive. Mm-hmm. So there is small concern about downstream paths because it will still have some computational cost. It's not about verifying signatures, but still you will have to verify a lot of paths. But it seems that it will be okay. It will not cause a real problem.
But just a second, downstream path even is verified by the external software, not online by router.
It's better to get it on the router software because it is the place where you can write a simple policy, reject invalid. Okay. You can do it in an external software, but what I know and what I foresee that huge content providers will use this technology faster than even enterprise routers will be available, because very huge content providers have its own routing software that is optimized and works quite fine.
Okay. So, but other than this downstream path, yeah, they are approaching really nice. It seems they want this solution to be ongoing. Yeah.
Yeah. You need to understand that the world of companies, huge vendors, is not that simple, and of course it will depend on the customer demand. So they were looking for the customer demand in the first place. I know that some huge companies were already pointing to the vendors that we want this technology in place. So
for ASPA, you are saying, huh?
ASPA, yes.
Okay,
yes.
Okay.
Some huge European carriers. If there will be more requests from all over the world, of course, it will speed up the process. So, as you can see, speaking about the drafts, I will just make a very quick overview because, as you have already said, we have spent already 2 hours. There are 3 documents. The first one describes the verification procedure. The second one describes the ASPA profile, just the RPKI object, and some magic nearby. And the last one is RTR, which is quite important because it will provide an opportunity to work with routers, which is a protocol that works between your cache, RPKI cache, and the router.
So can I use the same RPKI cache for the ASPA cache as well? For the same
Sure. So it should be one piece of software that will work with 2 types of objects. And for user, in ideal world, it will just need a software update to get this technology on board.
Is it single RTR?
And policies and extensions to block invalid. So from end user perspective, it's not very invasive in general. You just change your policy to mention particular new attributes.
But is it single RTR session between the cache and the router to send both ASPA? Single, okay.
Yeah, single RTR session. There was some problems with RTR protocol because the original design was very strict about new types of PDUs. But anyway, the update to the ITR protocol is in place. It is adopted by the working group, and I hope that it will move forward with the ASPA drafts together.
What about the protocol from the RIRs to get fill the cache? Same protocol like rsync, etc.
Yes, same protocol. Async is less preferable, and you should follow some very interesting discussions of what can happen with the async. But I will not dig in this. It's very hard topic. But anyway, so the way your cache is updating its records is just the same for both objects. And that's why the foundation of RPKI is very important.
Yeah.
I will add new objects on the basis of existing RPKI infrastructure.
And it will be, of course, the just regional interregistries when this gets especially adopted by those large vendors. I think those will be, RIRs also will update their portal to make it very easy to generate the ASPA object as well, similar to ROAs. And hopefully we can see some movement because, yes, we know the drawbacks of, shortcomings of RPKI and the necessity of the path validation technique, or let's say not just path validation, but propagating those wrong information to everywhere in the ecosystem in the default free zone. So this is really low costs, partial deployments, and all those advantages seems promising. And maybe almost a year I have been thinking about some challenges with this and what could be some extra problems. Now, by the way, I am first time seeing this downstream path. And you said that this is even very new. We just newly added. In the Nanoc also you didn't show this one.
Yeah, it was added last summer, last autumn, and so there was an interesting comment in the mailing list, and after that I reviewed what we can do and found out, okay, there is a simple logic that can also give us a chance to detect these kinds of route leaks. And recently in Yandex network at scale, I verified that this is really working, and we were able to detect leaks that are coming from providers, and it was robust even.
This is good. This is good. Maybe this video hopefully will be watched by those large operators. Let's say not only let's not limit it to the content providers or CDN, but maybe ISPs carriers as well. And then more adoption will trigger the vendors as well. More requests will trigger vendors, and then we can finally see some good protection on the global internet, hopefully. So what, guys, because now it's more than 2 hours, and let's just wrap it up.
The last slide.
Yep.
Yeah. So for those who will have enough patience to listen for 2 hours talking, the last slide is very important because at IETF there is a small team that is working on these drafts and will do its best to make these documents RFCs as soon as possible. But that the security of the BGP of the whole system is can't be done by this small group. It will be joint effort of the community, and the community will have a joint success or joint failure.
Excellent.
And it's very important that if you're looking at this video, you have questions about ASPA. You can reach me, you can reach other authors, or you can write through the open mailing lists at the IETF. If you see some side effects, it's crucial to write it now. And also, this project will require support as rear members, because if you want to secure your network, we need your cooperation at IETF, support at real members, so the RPKI portals will be updated sooner than later. And also if you are using some vendors, your customer demand could change the delivery date of your updated new shiny software.
Alexander, are you blogging somewhere?
And this is bicycles, as promised.
Nice ones. So, are you blogging somewhere, Alexander?
Blogging?
Yeah.
No. I'm writing some articles from time to time, but I'm not blogging.
Okay, so those articles, technical ones, how people can reach out, which website they can follow?
I've read some articles at RightBlog. I have one article, I believe, at the APNIC.
Alexander Azimov, so people can just Google it and then find your articles there on Google.
Yeah. For example, there were on one of these articles was a very detailed insight of the current approaches.
Okay, so I will check.
The ASPA thing is still missing in these blogs, but I think I will write one as soon as we will be ready for working group last call.
I will write as well about ASPA. Now I have much more insight than past, so I know quite amount of ASPA. Of course, I will send it to you before probably publishing. So for any kind of technical mistake, etc. So we can work on that because I want global security and for the global internet, BGP is there, and BGP, if it's not secure, we will always have this kind of issue, and networks will suffer, people will suffer. I mean, you will not be able to access the site, or slowness, lots of issues you will see, and we need to just secure this. And Jeff, what would you say, what they should do to secure the internet?
So to begin with, I spent some time at vendor. Go and beat up your vendor to implement this. Because if it doesn't go to product management, receives money on another end, it's not going to happen. Right? So get this implemented. Talk to your vendor of choice. There's not that many. So again, just to repeat myself, I find the proposal here as a good balance of technical trade-offs, right incentives, and since it supports partial deployment, you could start little, build operational practices, build tooling around it, and make it work. So there's absolutely no reason not to.
Okay. So
my position, just do.
All three of us agree on that. Hopefully, because I know I talked with the other guys like Tony and the others, I think Dino and many people. So when I talk about this, people are generally finding it's exactly what we have been saying about that. But again, for the vendors, it is all about, if there is customer requirement and if customers are asking, it will happen. So that's why if you are today deploying RPKI, it is just for a reason, not just other people are deploying as well, right? Maybe that is the case anyway. But if RPKI is providing, this is my opinion, 10% coverage, probably ASPA will cover those malicious cases 40-50%. So much more effective from my point of view. But it is also easy as creating RPKI ROAs. So why not? I am saying as well. And thanks guys for joining today. Alexander, thanks for your time. And if
all right, so there's a bunch of pretty good questions, mostly from Paul Lamp and some others. Would be really good to address them at some point. Maybe we should meet another time with Alexander and go through the questions.
Sure. So by the way, let me take those questions now. Very classical approach.
Yeah.
Through the chat, I just took the photo, and then probably we can address them. Is there anyone particularly Jeff, to talk about it? I already seen the migration one, and we talked how would this work with the provider migration ASPA. We talked about that. And then if there is any question at the moment, we can talk, or we can probably collect those questions and the other questions as well, and we can come up with the second session. It would be better probably, because today already is very long. We are tired anymore. And then
it would be a better proposal. Let's send these questions to Alexander and ask him to answer them on LinkedIn or wherever else we can communicate.
Okay. So
yeah, sure.
I think it
by the way, I really appreciate your eagerness to write a blog post about it, because as more attention we'll get to RPKI, ROAs, and ASPA together, the more chances that tomorrow we will wake up in a more secure BGP world.
Yes, agree. I think Jeff also agree with that, and he had a busy schedule, but when he heard about the ASPA, he wanted to join. So we are supporting it. Hopefully, we can see more adoption. Thanks, guys, for coming today. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Be safe.